Here is chapter 4 of Stanley, Flat Again. This chapter is called Back to School. Stanley was pleased that his classmates who still remembered his previous flatness made no great fuss about it now. Mostly they expressed only cheerful interest. "Feeling okay, Stan?" they said, "and looking sharp, man." Sharp, see? Get the joke? Only mean Emma Weeks was unpleasant. Here's a picture of that mean Emma Weeks, and she says, "Huh?" "Mr. Show-Off again," Emma said one day, but Stanley pretended not to hear. He had been back at school for a week when a newspaper, learning of this unusually shaped student, sent a photographer to investigate. He found Stanley watching a practice on the soccer field. "Flash Tobin," he said, "from the Daily Sentinel. You're the flat kid, right?" Stanley thought he must be joking. "How did you know?" he said, joking back. "How did I?" the photographer laughed. "Oh, I get it. Can I take your picture, kid? Right here by the goalposts?" Stanley nodded, and Flash Tobin took his picture. "I heard there was a flat kid here before," he said. "Helped catch sneak thieves at the famous Museum of Art. But that kid, I heard he got round again." "It was me," Stanley told him. "You go back and forth? Huh?" The photographer was impressed. "Okay, get round now. I'd like a shot of that, too." "I can't just do it when I want," Stanley explained. "The first time my brother had to blow me up with a bicycle pump." "Make a great picture," Flash Tobin shook his head. "Well, we'll just go with flat." Stanley's picture was in the Daily Sentinel the next morning, and Arthur could not help showing his jealousy. Stanley was always getting his picture in the paper, he said. Didn't they see how interesting it would be to have a picture of his brother? There was a soccer team practice that afternoon, and the day was windy. It was worrisome, the coach said, the way Stanley got blown about. Perhaps for the sake of the team, he should switch to an indoor sport. Stanley loved soccer, and the more he thought about what the coach had said, the sadder he felt. Miss Elliott, his homeroom teacher, noticed that he was not his usual cheerful self. "Mr. Redfield, the new guidance counselor, is said to be very helpful to troubled students," she told him. "I will ask him to find time for you." Miss Elliott spoke to him again after lunch. "Such good luck, Stanley. Mr. Redfield will see you right after school today." "Come in, Stanley. Sit right there." Mr. Redfield pointed to a comfortable chair. Stanley sat, and Mr. Redfield leaned back behind his desk. "Now then, you do understand that anything you say here is completely confidential. I won't tell anybody." Stanley wondered what he could say that would interest anybody else. "Miss Elliott tells me you seem troubled." Mr. Redfield lowered his voice. "What's wrong?" "I'm not sure, actually," Stanley said. Mr. Redfield picked up a pad and pen. "Speak freely. Whatever comes into your head. Anything special happen lately?" "Well, I got flat," Stanley said. Mr. Redfield made a note on his pad. "I do see that, yes. How did that make you feel?" Stanley thought for a moment. "Flat." "I see," Mr. Redfield nodded. This flatness, it comes upon you before, I'm told. Is it possible that somehow, without even admitting it to yourself, you wanted it to happen again?" "No way," Stanley said firmly. "The first time it was kind of fun for a while. Flying like a kite and being mailed to California, things like that. But then I got, tired of it, and now I might get put off the soccer team." Mr. Redfield nodded again. "You take no pleasure now in your unusual shape." Stanley thought for a moment. "Well, sometimes." He told about being a sail and helping Ralph Jones win a race. Mr. Redfield made another note. "I see. This dream of being a sail, have you dreamed it before?" Stanley stared at him. It really happened. I'm just tired of being different, I guess." Mr. Redfield pressed his fingertips together. "Different? How do you feel different, would you say?" Stanley wondered how Mr. Redfield could be a guidance counselor if he had both terrible eyesight and a terrible memory. Well, I'm the only one in my class who's flat, he said. The whole school, actually. Interesting, Mr. Redfield made another note and glanced at his watch. I am afraid our time is up, Stanley. Would you like to see me again? Just let Miss Elliot know. Okay, Stanley said politely, but he didn't think he would.